Yeah, I think having emotional intelligence is actually, it can be a superpower, because, I think to be first be able to be vulnerable with somebody, we have to be vulnerable with ourselves. We have to really dig deep into, again, why we do what we do. How are you? Welcome to Legit.
Thank you for having me, BC.
Yes, I'm excited for our conversation. I believe this would be beautiful. Hope a lot of things come to light. So guys, I have Annabel Quintero here. She's a holistic mindset coach. Who was born to Ecuadorian parents and raised in Seattle. She believes that we are all citizens of the world. Her diverse experience as a leader, educator, entrepreneur, and public servant are all connected by a common thread, positively impacting people's lives. Um, Her own life was actually irrevocably changed on September 11, 2001, when she narrowly escaped the 46th floor of the World Trade Center's Tower 1 during the deadliest terrorist attack on US soil. Ever since that day, she has devoted herself to empowering people and advancing the world around her community. So, Annabelle, that that sounds scary. Uh, can you tell us a little bit about that? How you escaped, first of all, and what you were feeling in the midst of all of that?
Sure, absolutely. Uh, wow. Well, I moved to New York to pursue my dreams, my childhood dreams of modeling, and wanted to work on Wall Street. And I was also a dancer. So New
Okay.
York was the perfect place to be since that was where hip hop was born.
Mm,
So I got a great job at this boutique hedge fund, and I was responsible of preparing all the portfolios for my boss to get ready for the stock market. So one Tuesday morning I wake up and I'm running late, and I finally get into the office. I beat him to the office, so I turn on all the computers and printers and I get everything printed out, and I'm sitting there getting caught up on the paper with the markets, and I'm thinking to myself about, wow, how are we going to end, all this inequities economically? And I think to myself, there needs to be multinational corporations should pay a global minimum wage. And then all of a sudden, something hits my building. And I think it's another building that fell on ours. There wasn't a fire alarm, there wasn't anything. So I run to the window, and it's a sunny September day, and all the buildings are shorter than the one I'm in. And I'm like, well, there's no other building that fell.
right.
And so all of a sudden the building starts rumbling,
Hmm.
and I get to the doorway. Um, it all shakes, and I'm like, ay, Dios mío, ¿qué hago? Like, dear God, what do I do?
Right.
And um, and I was so afraid, and I wanted to go under the desk. I had been trained to, and when there's an earthquake, go under the desk. But I was like, I don't know if this is quite an earthquake. It feels like it, but I'm not sure. And then the whole office turned gray. And I knew at that moment, I was like, okay, God, I can't be here. But the building shook and it rumbled, and it just, I was so afraid. I told myself, okay, Annabelle, you have to leave, even if you have to die trying. So I go and I run in the hallway, and then I get to the stairwell and I touch the doorknob, and I can't tell if it's hot or cold. And I know from life training, you're not supposed to open a door unless you know that the doorknob is cold. So I take all the years I've done meditation. I was like, okay, just breathe, try to figure this out. And I hold the doorknob, and I breathe in and I breathe out. And I'm like, okay, it's cold.
Okay.
And I open the door, and I just step with my left, and I step with my right, and I leap to the landing, and I just step, step, jump, step, step, jump.
Mm.
And so much happened in that stairwell. I mean, there was hysterical people. I saw people who were burned. I even had to see our beloved firefighters ascend their stairway to heaven, and it tore me apart for years. It still does. Um, it took me all day long to get home that day, and it was the scariest thing I had ever experienced. I had never I haven't been in the armed services. I had never experienced a day of war until that day.
Okay.
And it took a lot for me to heal from the trauma, from the survivor's guilt. And so I ended up going back to Seattle and did a 10-day meditation. And I also did a sweat lodge. And in that time, it's like being in Mother Earth's womb, I felt so healed. And so that healing process is really what I would like to share with people, is how to really how to confront ourselves and our fears when we can't escape our feelings.
So the name of your company, your personal development company, is Step Step Jump.
Yes.
And you got that name from what you experienced.
Yes, because it's more than just 3 words. It embodies. I was so focused, and everything was just in line, even from my feet landing in the middle of the stairwell. And in so many ways, I feel that even though I had a September 11th, I feel like we all have a September 11th, whether it's a divorce, whether
In
it's
our own lives.
someone we love that dies, or whatever that life altering event is. And despite our fear and despite the utter pain, we we step in courage, and we do have to step forward and take another step, and then really leap for what we really want in our lives. So that's where that's where it all came from.
Okay. So you said it took years for you to actually, I guess, get over. Are you at a stage where you feel like you're over it, or there's still days where, sometimes it's like, oh, what's going on? Something triggers it.
Yeah, I always thought one of the things that held me back in my life, and what kept me hidden, is that I felt that I had to be quote unquote healed
Mm.
from something like that. And we I will never be healed from that. That will always affect me. I think anyone who survives war is never healed, and we shouldn't be, because it's a terrible experience. And I think that that's what keeps us human.
Right.
And despite not being healed, I also am not letting that get in the way of me being a resilient leader and helping other people through their trauma.
Mm.
Because in many ways, I feel that our the wounded warriors will have to heal other people's wounds. And in many ways, I feel that the trauma that we experience, either within our lives or collectively, it will be up to us to heal others that go through the same situation.
So how were you able to manage your emotions throughout your healing process?
Well, I grew up Christian, and so I always had a strong relationship with God and
Okay.
prayed. One of the things that was a huge transformational experience for me was when I had done a 10-day meditation. because that allowed me to sit in silence and truly just be the observer
Mm,
of what makes our human behavior. I never knew it was my mind
right.
and my emotions and my bodily sensations. And those three pillars of what I call the human triad, being able to meditate and watch that allowed me to understand my patterns. It allowed me to understand, oh, when I think of this memory, all these emotions come up, and then my body feels a particular way, and then I will act or really react. And so meditating really, not only did it save my life that day to be able to calm down and figure out if the doorknob was hot or cold, but it also saved my life in terms of giving me an inner resource, because it allowed me to really feel my life force and understand what the stories that are in my mind and how I choose or not choose to react from them.
Okay, that's really good. Basically, just being really it brings you to a state where you're so self-conscious and aware of why you do what you do, or why you respond to certain things in a certain way. And so, after you know why, what do you do? What do you do with that? Because it's like, okay, now I know why.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So one of the things in terms of positively managing my emotions and becoming more emotionally intelligent is to be able, most of the time, I would say, when we're dealing with our emotions, it's usually in a relationship, right? Either
Mhm.
it's with someone at the workplace or a partner. And so being able to understand, oh, when this person does that particular behavior, I feel like this.
Mhm.
And so, even having the language and changing that in our communication by not saying, you make me feel like this, and there's blame and victim consciousness in that language, right? And we take away all of our responsibility away, we're not accountable to ourselves, right? So, also just saying, when this happens, these emotions come up for me,
Okay.
and texturize it, and not just have one big label, but being able to add layers of emotion and having the vocabulary there. That is huge, because it also allows you to be vulnerable. It
Mm.
gives you an opportunity to really have true intimacy and
Mm.
honesty. It is difficult.
Mm.
It's not easy to share how a certain behavior is, you sharing what's coming up for you.
Right.
But I'd say that even when you have those hard conversations, if they're at work or when they're, personal interactions with, people in your life, it just broadens and it allows you to create more space, because now you're feeling something, but you're not just reacting. Now you know, okay, I'm feeling this, it's coming up, I'm aware. And you start thinking, okay, how am I going to approach this? How what's the outcome of this conversation? Right? So
Mm.
you're not just reacting and then having to deal with all the carnage afterwards,
Yeah,
but you're
thinking.
truly now, you're aware of what's coming up, and you're like, how can I still be responsible with my own emotions, but also share how how they're part of that dynamic.
Mm.
And so that's the beginning of building your emotional intelligence, and also building a true friendship, or a true um, colleague, building the relationship with that colleague.
Yeah, I think having emotional intelligence is actually, it can be a superpower, because, I think to be able to be vulnerable with somebody, we have to be vulnerable with ourselves. We have to really dig deep into, again, why we do what we do, how things affect us. Um, I remember with me, I was with an ex, and he would say something, and I wouldn't like it at all. Like, it was a very trivial word, right? But that was something where I was in a space when I was young. I was in a space where that word would come up in a violent situation, or a very, negative situation. And so when he would bring that up, it would trigger something in me, right? And so just to be able to be aware of that and have conversations, just so when you understand that, then you're able to better explain, that to other people, or handle it better. So yeah, no, that is good. And so what is the kind of like the framework of, like, if you get clients who have been through so many traumatic events, what's the framework that you do take them through? And by the end of your program, what position are they in?
That's great.
Yeah.
That's a great question. First, I'd say that creating that safe, sacred space
Mm-hmm.
first so that they can be vulnerable and be honest is first what I do. But the framework really, for whatever reason, the threes and triads are um, is really what grounds my work. So not only do the three pillars of human behavior ground my work, but I see that in many other realms. And so I first like to find out, where are we,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you have to get a landscape first. What are the things that we know, and where are the blind spots? And so I do begin with, okay, there's usually always a challenge, right? Someone comes to you because they want to grow an area of themselves. And so what is that? Is it, uh, is it in their mind? Is it a relationship? Is it their health and their body?
Mm-hmm.
Um, is it just the turmoil that they can't let go of the past? You have to kind of figure out, okay, what's going on right now, and what's their goal?
Right.
Figuring out, okay, after 8 sessions, where do you want to
Want to
be?
be right.
Because that's important, and some people may not have an answer for that, and some people just want to progress and just get out of the muck that they're in.
Right.
And so I'd say at the end of a program with me, they really become much more self-aware of how much more power they really do have. Because
Mm-hmm.
since I use the human behavior, those 3 pillars, and whether the person meditates or not has nothing to do with it, but I still have exercises around that. And the observer, the consciousness becomes more alive within them, for them to watch themselves. And also at the end of the program, realize, like, oh, okay, the more time I spend on this, it is a choice.
Mm.
You can make, I mean, there's some point where you have to make a choice on what you're going to do with that particular situation.
Right.
But it's also the choice to not do anything, or to stay in that thinking. Because all the time, if nothing was to change, then it still comes down to us. Who would we really have to be happy if nothing changed? If
Change.
everything stayed the same, and the only thing we could do was change ourselves, if no condition was going to change at all, who would we have to become? What would we have to believe in our minds? And how would we be?
Mm-hmm.
And so going back to that, that is where they realize, wow, I have so much more power. And the stories and the attention and the energy that I give the past or a particular situation, that is that consciousness, wherever that is, that's what's keeping me there. And so I'd say that they learn more about themselves and evolve wherever their trajectory is, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy that you mentioned that you grew up Christian because I believe the basis of all this, in a sense, is really being rooted and knowing who you are, you know, and like you said, whether situations change, whether something is removed or not, who are you? And I think that's really powerful because I think in this day and age, accomplishments, are the things that fuel people to make them feel like, yes, I'm somebody too, right? So, no, I think that's really good. And I want to commend you for, using whatever it is that you went through, in September 11th and escaping that gruesome, situation and really using it to make something beautiful. I I talk about purpose all day, every day, and I think it's always birthed out of our darkest. As long as you survive the situation, yeah, it's purpose from there, now, trying to help people up and trying to get people there too. So that's really beautiful. Do you have any last words?
I do. I thank you for that. I appreciate
Yeah.
you for seeing me.
Mm-hmm.
And um, I'd say that we have this day, and there is so much for us, and there's so much possibility for us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and anyone who has gone through a lot of trauma and is hurting, um, that it will get better. It will not stay like that
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah.
And we don't have to be healed to be who we are and still impact people's lives in a positive way. So I just want to make sure that people who are going through so much right now, that they know that as they are enough.
Mm-hmm.
And for them, if they feel like writing a book, or they feel like helping others, or sometimes even if you're depressed, sometimes helping others even gets you out of your
I was
depression.
just about to say that. Yeah.
Yeah, because you're
Yeah.
serving and you get out of your mind and you're in action.
Yeah.
And that also helped me as well. So I just want to make sure that people have a few ways to, if they find themselves in a rut, in a mental rut, and right now there's so much uncertainty, and there's very few outlets for us, um, that people don't feel that you have to arrive at a particular place to serve and to go beyond yourself. You can still go beyond your depression or
Yeah.
beyond where you're stuck.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it will take your voice, it will take your message to resonate with someone, and you will be surprised at what your voice can do. So
Yeah.
I hope that gives people hope to continue to move forward and know that they matter, and your purpose is here matters.
Yeah. Yeah. No. I totally agree. And when we spoke about being for somebody, just being for somebody what you need, in a sense, right? I think that's so powerful, and healing definitely does come along the way in that. As we gather all those tools, how to do, oh, this worked, this didn't work, and in a sense, it's like you said, we never arrive, but we're always evolving, right? We're
Mm-hmm.
always evolving, and that's really what we want. Well,
Mhm.
thank you for this, Annabelle. This was very,
Absolutely. Thank you. It's an honor to be here, BC. Thank you for inviting me.
yes, of course. This was informational. This was good. Uh, and so I want to play a little game or
Oh, how
little
fun. Yay.
random questions. So I saw this is actually like a yes or no question, but I saw this somewhere and I was like, oh, so right before you take a shower, do you leave the water running? Like, do you open the water and then go off and do something else and then come back?
No, I don't know. I don't like to
Okay.
waste water too much. So
Okay.
no.
Okay,
Mm-mm.
cool. I saw it somewhere and everybody was like, oh yeah, yeah, we do that. And I was like, oh yeah, I do that too. So that's good. Um, what's your favorite season?
Ah, that's a hard one. Summer and fall.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that's cool. I love fall.
I love the fall too. That's why it's hard, but
Yeah.
summer is really fun.
Yeah, yeah, summer is fun. Well, that's it, Annabelle. Thank you
Okay.
so
Thank
much.
you, VC. It's
It
such a
was,
pleasure.
yes. Is there any information as to where, anybody can find you if they
Ab-
want resources
Absolutely.
for step jump?
Yes, absolutely. They
Yes.
can go to my stepstepjump.com website. I'm also on Facebook there and on Instagram. And I'd love to see you. I have workshops and I'm excited to just walk the journey with everyone, anyone who's really willing for that, looking for that next evolution in their lives.
Right. And just a quick one. Do you specifically work with women or everybody?
Everybody. Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
In particular, I actually work with men a lot.
Wow.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
No, I want to hear more about that. Oh, okay. Well, that's good. Thank you,
Yeah.
Annabelle. Yeah. So now we know
Thank you
this
for
is a cross-board situation. It's not just
absolutely.
towards, yeah, one kinds of people. Well, yeah. Okay. Well, thank
Thank you for
you.
having me,
Yes.
BC. Take
Bye.
care. Bye bye.